So today's sermon is basically going to be about fear and how we should put our trust in God. So the first verse I'm going to be reading is Isaiah 41:10, and it says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." So everyone has fears. I don't know everyone's fears in this whole room, but I'm sure we all have fears. And if you say you don't, well, it's either you are lying or you haven't encountered your fear. So I came up with this sermon idea when I was laying in my bed one day, on one Sabbath, try to take a nap. I couldn't take a nap because I was restless. I was deeply thinking, pondering of my life and all the things that had scared me. Now, I've been a scaredy cat my whole life. And there was this one time where I actually froze in fear. I actually couldn't move. I was too scared. I will talk about that as the sermon goes on. So, as we all know, it's really, really easy to forget that God is there, especially when we are really scared. Sometimes when something really bad happens, or when we encounter something we're scared of, well, we turn to prayer. I know it's happened to me a lot of times. The amount of times Ziggy has run away, and I've been like, please, Lord, please, make sure he comes back to me, because I don't want another gecko. I just want Ziggy. I somewhat remember back when we just moved to House Light. I don't remember much, but I do remember a little bit. This memory is kind of glued into my mind because for me, it was really scary. Now, when I was all my life actually, except for now, I'm not as scared of them, but when I was younger, I used to be drop dead scared of spiders and their webs. I hated webs. I still hate them. Just the feeling of it tearing, especially if the web is really thick, I could feel it tearing, and I hate the feeling of it. It makes me, ugh, right? So, we were outside. Me and my sisters were outside. We, were playing with our toys, playing vivid stories. And, I decided, I'm going to go over to my next door neighbor's house. And, because, I'm bored of playing with the girls. They're not, Erica's leaving me out, because that's what she used to do. She's like, go play with your own toys, Jenna, right? And me and Selena are playing. Leave us alone, right? I was the younger sibling, so, of course, Erica thought I was a menace, trying to ruin her time with Selena. So I went to go walk over to Amber's house. And her dad had built a bridge across this ditch. And we had our pool deck there. Our pool deck was right next to the bridge. Well, as I was walking towards the bridge, I felt like a ticklish feeling, and the feeling of a rip, like the ripping of a web. I froze, and I just looked around like, oh, please tell me there's no spider in this web, because oh man, there was a huge spider. The huge spider was floating in midair, and I was just like, what? Right? And I was so scared, right? I started screaming, right? And I was like, please tell me at least Selena will save me, right? I mean, I don't expect Erica to, but Selena, at least please tell me she'll save me, right? From this stinking web, right? And I screamed. I was like, help, I'm in a spider web, right? Erica walks over, Erica and Selena walk over, and Erica's like, what do you want, right? Selena's like, Jenna, just walk out of the web, right? And I'm just like, I can't, there's a spider right there, get the spider away from me, right? And Erica's like, well, I'm not saving you, right? You can get yourself out of there yourself, right? It's not that scary. I'm just like, I'm just standing there so scared, right? I think Erica got a little frustrated at me, so she ended up, like, hauling me by the shoulder out of the web, and, I was screaming because I could feel the web on my arms, because I was wearing a tank top, shorts. This was in the summertime, obviously. And, the feeling of the web on my skin, ugh, man, it just, like, it still icks me out today. I don't like webs. I don't mind spiders, but webs are, no, just keep me away from webs. Yeah, so as a kid, like how I was calling out for help for my sisters, I feel like that's what we should do when we're in a really scary situation. I feel like that is, like, the right thing to do. We should call out to God for help, in our time of need. I'm gonna tell you about another experience us girls had. This one was with Levi. And as a really young kid, Levi would wander. It kind of made you wish you had, like, a child leash so he wouldn't run off, because that's what he used to do. Like, you turn your back for 1 second and he would be off up the road, like, and you'd be like, right? And the amount of times Dad had to drive Levi back home because he would be up the road, and those girls would be like, he went off that far, right? Yeah, that's true. And that was my fault for not telling the girls he was outside. So this one day we were actually supposed to be keeping an eye on Levi, obviously because, like I said, he wandered, and he wandered very far. He wandered off to who knows where, So I was playing with the girls, and, I was like, Levi hasn't come around in a while. Yeah, he hasn't come around the corner. I wonder what's going on, right? We looked around for him, and he was nowhere to be found. We were like, right? We were like, oh, Mom's gonna be so mad, right? And anyway, we, because Levi had this pattern. He still has a pattern. He still has a pattern around the church, right? Levi had a certain pattern he went. It was around the house to Stanley's yard, which was a work yard. It was, like, for construction, but we literally just let him go there because, he didn't go in there. Not in the work yard. He would just go around it, right? And the grass was actually dead in a trail because he would walk it so many times. It was actually dead. The grass was actually dead in a nice trail, right? And it was kind of odd, Anyway, us girls, we decided to brave it and tell Mom and Dad, And I think we all know that telling your parents that you weren't keeping an eye on your baby brother is going to cause panic in the house, especially to Mom, because Levi was Mom's baby boy. He could do, yeah. But, like, he was a baby, you looked at him and you were like, you better keep an eye on him, right? Anyway, Mom began to panic, and, she started, yelling out to Levi, and, Mom lost her voice a lot of the time. That was just the way it worked. I don't know why, but, she was like, Levi, get back here, right? Wherever you are, right? And Dad came out also. He was, and he ended up getting frustrated and lectured us on how we were supposed to keep an eye on Levi. I don't blame him, because, like, he was our other sibling, so, we should have been keeping an eye on him. But, Dad lectured us and was telling us we should have been keeping an eye on him, right? And especially since he has autism and nonverbal autism. So, like, if he was to walk up someone's yard, they'd be like, "What are you doing here?" He'd just totally ignore them. And, they'd be like, "Rude?" In my day, right? And, yeah, but the sibling that felt the most responsible was Selena. She was the older sibling, she was also the more mature one. She still is. Me and Erica, proof of me and Erica not being the mature ones was me and Erica didn't grow out of our childish ways until we were 13. Some of us haven't fully. But we ended up finding Levi after, and you'll never guess where he was. So, obviously, because I haven't told you. So, there, above Stanley's yard, there was this really big, tall hill, right? It was very steep, lots of sharp rocks. We looked down it, and there was Levi. And don't worry, he was not dead or anything. He was basically just, living his life on the edge, literally. Just crawling down it, enjoying every minute of it. I think he may have been giggling or not. Like, oh my goodness, this is so fun, right? I think Dad or Mom ended up pulling him up, and that's when the fence came in. There was a fence specifically made so Levi would not go over the edge after, by Stanley and his men. But I could tell Dad and Mom were really relieved. I could tell they were really relieved, and I agree. I couldn't understand how they were relieved, because, to think that your son that can't speak, so he can't tell anyone where he lives or anything, and, he'll wander off. That's like a huge fear, we had. We were really scared, whenever he would wander off and we didn't know where he went. We used to find him in odd areas. But yeah, it was really fearful. But when Levi had went missing for like a few minutes or maybe so, I can't remember fully. I think I remember Mom prayed. Yeah. I noticed she was like praying, like, God, please, like, keep him safe, wherever he is, bring him back to us, and God had answered her prayer. I looked at Mom. I looked at Mom as like someone with really good faith. It was very admirable. So, it really did inspire me a lot to have stronger faith. But God was with us in that really scary situation. And, Mom called out for his help, and he was there for us. That's all we did. All you have to do is just call out to God, and he'll be there. So, I have this verse, John 6:19. This really goes along with the sermon. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened. In this verse, it tells us about the time Jesus walked on water, obviously, as it said. Now, imagine if your best friend, you were just out in the boat enjoying your day, and all of a sudden your friend was walking on water. Like, hey guys, right? How you doing, right? May I join you, right? Imagine if your friend walked over to you on the water. I mean, I would personally be like, go away, ghost, right? I'd be like, was it? I would be like, was it? I would be calling on God to get rid of this demon, maybe, right? But the disciples were really scared. But I'm going to read verses John 6:16-20, and to basically read it all. When evening came, his disciples went down to the lake, where they got into a boat and set off across the lake for Capernaum. By now it was dark, and Jesus had not yet joined them. A strong wind was blowing, and the waters grew rough. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on water. And they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I. Don't be afraid." Right? That was the NIV version. I learned my lesson from last time when I took forever to find the different chapters. Because I'm not good at flipping through the pages of my Bible like Dad is, where he's just like, "Hey, you guys." All right? So I just read the NIV version just in case, anyone was wondering. But in these verses, obviously, the disciples are in their boat. It had been a very long day, for Jesus, and then after Jesus had preached to and fed all 5,000 people. I feel like there probably would have been more, I think. I don't know. So, you can guess that they were all extremely tired. They were like, "I'm done with people today. I just want to sleep, so whoever talks to me, leave me alone," right? So that's what I would be like, because I can only handle a certain amount of socializing before I have to go to sleep. After this, I'm probably going to be sleeping for a few hours. So imagine you're with your best friends and, say you're on a boating trip, like I said earlier. And one of your friends decided to stay back for some reason. So you and the rest of your buddies get in the boat and go on. It's dark when you set off. And it's stormy, and suddenly you see someone walking towards you, right? They're walking like, they look calm as they're walking on these wavy waters, just like, "Hey guys," right? And they're just like, so I would be frightened and confused at the same time, honestly. I'd be like, how is that possible? There's no one on this earth that can walk on water. So the disciples felt that way too. They were scared and confused. I like to think as soon as Peter saw Jesus walking on water, he was like, "Lord, what in heaven's name are you doing? Can I try?" Right? That's what I feel like he probably was like. He was like, cool, but also scary. So when Peter was walking on water, I had a feeling he was truly amazed. But as he was walking towards Jesus, he looked down at the stormy waters, and suddenly he was sinking. And you know what? It's because he didn't put his full faith and trust in God. And that's what can happen if you don't put your faith and trust in God when you are afraid. You will sink. You won't float. He was absolutely terrified. He thought he was going to drown, but he forgot the most important thing. And what was that? He forgot Jesus was there, and he wouldn't have sunk if he kept his eyes on Jesus and not looked at the storm behind and beneath him. But he didn't have the faith that Jesus would keep him steady on the water, so he sunk. But as we all know, he didn't die. In Matthew 14:27-33, it says, "But Jesus immediately said to them, 'Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid.'" I must have pulled up the verses. Give me a minute. All right. Okay, so this is before Peter walked on the water. Peter was like, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come." Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "O you of little faith, why did you doubt me?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." So as you can see, Peter forgot to have faith in Jesus. And in verse 30, he cries out to God for help. Because he is afraid of drowning, he didn't want to die, but he didn't keep in mind that Jesus told them all before to have faith in him and they will fear no more. You know, the disciples were forgetful. I guess that's what you could call them. They forgot a lot of what he said. Like how Jesus was not there to free them from the Romans. He was there to save them all. And the real kingdom was in heaven, not on earth. But they weren't listening, so they basically thought he was going to take them from the Romans. But, yeah. I'm sure Jesus, you know, if I was him, I would be like, have you learned nothing, right? But Jesus was really patient. So, I've got one more story to tell that happened in my life. This was actually quite recent, I suppose. It's not too recent. It happened a year ago, but it's more recent than 12 years ago. So it was something that made me more cautious when I was walking, specifically from our next door neighbor's dogs. So it was a normal day. I was crooked because I didn't want to take Polar on a walk, because I normally am crooked because, you know, I just don't like how I have to be cautious. I managed to get out with, you know, a bit of encouragement from Selena. So this was before Polar's pen door was usable. So, like, this was before his gate was, like, fixed. So we had to take him out into the front porch and take him out the front door. So he was trotting along. I was taking my sweet time too, just breathing in the fresh air, getting somewhat annoyed with Polar because he was taking forever to spell one stinking piece of grass. Literally. It all happened really fast. There was our next door neighbor's dog. She wasn't a small dog. She was a German Shepherd. But she was a young German Shepherd, so, you know, Polar was bigger than her, but she was faster than him. So me and Polar turned around, and before we had time to speak, the dog had Polar on the ground in seconds. So, you know, this was a humbling experience for Polar, because, you know, Polar is like a macho man. You know, he thinks he's all it sometimes. He has, you know, he thinks he's all perfect. That's just the way he works. Anyway, I was, like, panicking because there was nothing I could do, because you can't get in the middle of a dogfight, because that's just, it's a common fact. You can't get in the middle of a dogfight. Some people use cold water to throw on the dogs, but, you know, there's no cold water around where I was. I was terrified because Polar was on the ground, like, screaming for her to get off. Like, he was actually, like, the husky screaming. But she was biting him and was gnawing on his lower jaw. And I think her teeth also got his gums, which, you know, for a few weeks was swollen. It was kind of swollen on that side of his face. But the owner of the dog, he ended up pulling her off of him and dragging her back to his house. He apologized later, and, you know, obviously we forgave him. You know, it was a freak accident, you know. We ended up reminding him, you know, to keep his dog tied on because, you know, this dog was free roaming. Like, free roaming the different, like, our property and all that. Basically to keep her tied on for other dogs' safety and for her own. So Polar's okay now, you know, he ended up having a swollen lip and was scared for a while to go outside, but he got back to his old self. he's back to thinking, he's perfect. So I think what we can learn from these experiences is we need to put our faith in God, no matter what situation we're in. I want to remind you that fear is a natural emotion or feeling, but we shouldn't let it control our lives. Instead, we need to put our faith in God and trust in His plan for us. For He has promised to never leave us or forsake us. Remember, when we have faith in God, we have nothing to fear. He will guide us through the storms of life and give us the strength to overcome any obstacle. So let us choose to have courage, for our faith in God is greater than any fear. And may we continually put our trust in Him and experience the peace and joy that comes with it. Thank you all for listening, and may God bless you all today. I'm just gonna, for closing, memory verse, I'm just gonna read Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear, not be afraid of them. For the Lord your God, He is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Thank you. Oh, right. I guess we'll close in prayer. Let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, I pray that you will be with anyone here who is afraid of something. That you will, constantly remind us that, you are with us and we don't need to be afraid. I pray that you'll bless the Sabbath day and be with everyone here. Thank you for everything in your glorious, heavenly, and most precious name. Amen.